And I was like, that is like, my job has been done. Mission accomplished. Like, that was super good to know.
Can you do, can you do me a favor? Can you look in the camera and say like, comment, and subscribe?
Like, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So
Oh.
to my grandson's channel. Say
Oh.
like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
You heard it. Okay, welcome back to If I Knew Then. Today we have my former colleague, Sylvia Amador. We go way back. We worked together at GSK, I don't know what, like 10 years ago now. It's been a while. I'm glad that I get to have this conversation with you today. Thank you for doing this. Before we go any further, can I turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, of course. And thanks so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of all the episodes that you post on YouTube.
Thank
And
you.
it's always nice to connect with former colleagues and kind of talk about careers and kind of catch up. My name is Sylvia Amador. I'm originally from Venezuela, but have been living in the US since I was in 2019. But I also studied here, so I've been kind of back and forth. Work in the pharmaceutical industry. Currently, I have a role at a big tech company within the consulting team, kind of helping pharma clients set up our different platforms so they can review and approve material that will eventually go to HCP and patients.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm curious before we get into specifics, can you walk me through a little bit about your career journey and how you got into the space that you're in?
Yeah, excellent question. I always love to talk about my career because it started in a very like odd way in the sense like after I graduated from college, I went back to Panama to live with my parents, and like Panama and Latin America when it comes to job hunting, it's very like the network you have will help you get into what industry you want to. And for some reason, I was like, I don't want to use my dad's contacts to get my first job. And I always told him that. And he was like, you take your time, you do what you want. And the summer before I graduated, he helped me get an internship actually at GSK because he
Okay.
knew someone in, I think someone in human resources had contacted his friend to do like a speaker program on like coaching and whatnot, and they were having an external meeting, and he's like, oh, you can stop by, say hi to him, and he'll introduce you to a doctor who's hiring like interns for the publications team. And so I was like, oh, that sounds good, it's an internship. And then when I graduated and I was like, oh, I know they're still looking for someone in the publications team, but I didn't want to be like, oh, I got my first job because of a contact my dad gave me. It took me a couple of months, and like GSK reached out. They're like, hey, we're hiring for the job you did as an intern. And it's like, it was such a specific job because it was working with the vaccines team to publish like journal articles after a study was concluded. So it was
Okay.
like a very unique space. Like, so the sense of like skills were very particular. And they're like, we don't know anybody else who's done this but you. So I still got interviewed, and it was funny because like they asked me questions, and the human resources person was like, I know you know what you need to do, so we're gonna like interview a couple more candidates, but we're pretty sure we're gonna give you the role. And I told my dad, like, obviously, I tried to find other jobs within Panama, but at the end of the day, the contacts kind of like made the difference. And I was like, might as well get my foot in the door in that sense. So I started my job in GSK through that. Did a couple of years with the vaccines team, which was exciting in the sense of working with the publications team. Learned a lot about epidemiology. Learned a lot about like medical affairs and coordinating events for speaker programs and all that of the industry in itself. And then from there, I decided to do like a shift within the company, and there was an opening to do multi-channel marketing because I've always been super interested in marketing. And that role was a big challenge for me because it was not just working with the vaccines team, but it included like the whole portfolio of GSK. So I got to work closely with the HIV marketers, the respiratory marketers. So you could kind of get an understanding of how they would market their products based on the different specialities of the doctors. So it was a whole new world for me. And I was like, this is amazing because you get a better understanding of everything that is part of like a pharmaceutical team, like not team, but like a company per se. So you have the marketers, the tech team, procurement, legal, regulatory. And it was like all the players were in there, and it was kind of nice to get that big picture. So I spent a couple of years there, and all this was still in Panama. And
Okay.
then how I ended up meeting Anthony, because you're probably wondering, like, Anthony hasn't lived in Panama, but I had a really good friend from the vaccines team that she would internally look at like different roles, and she found one that was based in Philly. I know actually it was based in either Philly or Brazil, which I thought was very interesting.
Okay.
And she shared it with me. She's like, "Oh, this job is with human resources. It's around helping employees be healthy." And like back in the day, I was also doing in parallel like a certification around health coaching. And so I got really interested in like how to help people become their best version in terms of health and habits. And my friend, she knew that I was doing that, and she's like, "Oh, you can kind of use that skill set that you have in communication." And so she suggested that I apply, and ended up like doing that role at GSK within Philly, and I moved to Philly, and it was a very interesting role. I really enjoyed kind of seeing how we can help people when it comes to your day-to-day job. You sometimes forget the importance of taking care of yourself, and I remember at the time I started the job and then COVID hit. So it was like a really interesting challenge to help the employees at GSK take care of themselves through a pandemic at the same time. So it was like, how do we communicate the benefits? How do we set up webinars in which we talk about burnout and like work life balance? And that's how I also met Anthony, and like you were part of the team as well. So it was an interesting trajectory because sometimes I feel like when I started my first job, I thought like, oh, it's just going to be publications for the rest of my career. But then you don't know like what happens along the way, that it's like, oh, health can be a part of human resources, and there's a team there that would like you could do something in there. So it was an interesting like segue how I bounced from like publications to marketing to then the health benefits program within GSK.
That is really cool. I did not know that too. I knew a little bit of your background, but I didn't know to that level. What did you go to school for?
I did public health and a minor in health promotion.
Okay, so this was the right field. It's funny. I mean, you're not alone in not wanting to leverage contacts at times, but I think there's this, I don't know why we feel that way, but that's just the way the world works. It's not like you
Yeah.
got a free pass because of the networks. You got your foot in the door and then you created opportunities because you did a good job while you were there, you know? So
Yeah, exactly.
it is, it's interesting. But then you probably didn't think about it this way, but you used a contact to get your next job in
That is
HR.
true. That is
Like
true. Full
however you
circle.
network is network. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so I every time I do this, I hear it's always a different version of a story or a different perspective, but the power of networking and how you leverage that network, not in a selfish way and not just like solely like self-promotion or looking for something individually, that's truly how people get opportunities, and that's how you set yourself apart.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was more of like a pride sense that I was like, "Oh, I don't want to get
I
my
get it.
first job." But at the end of the day, to your point, like you never know who you're gonna meet along the way that is gonna know someone or hear about a job opening that can like open that next opportunity for you.
I get it. Yeah. Um okay, so fast forward to what did you do after that role?
Yeah, after GSK, I decided to try something else, and I went into an agency. So started working as a account executive, and it was a very interesting role because it was more on the like the other side of like the marketing spectrum per se, and we were creating content for a brand that focused on a rare disease called central precocious puberty. I had never in my life heard of that, and I learned a lot. It was
Yeah.
like basically, central precocious puberty is kids get puberty way ahead of their time because the hormones start developing earlier, and so you could have like a girl getting puberty at age 8, for example, or a 7, and it's like, how do you as a caregiver or the parent talk to your kid about what they're going through, and then how does the doctor talk to the caregiver about treatment options? So it was a very unique space, and it was very kind of made me remind myself of like, oh, there's so many rare diseases that we don't know of unless you know someone that is going through that. So
Hmm.
it was a very really like interesting experience, and it made me like realize like there's so many diseases that one might not be aware of because you have the classic ones that a lot of people go through, but maybe the rare disease space is such like a niche small audience that you're not even heard of. And so really interesting role. I really appreciated everything that we did for like that community. We ended up also within the agency doing what was it? We went to a congress and we met a lot of parents and their kids, and they talked about like how this particular brand had helped them and how the kid is now super healthy and like going off to high school or graduated. And it was like very fulfilling. Like, wow, that's so beautiful that like this particular medicine can help families still live a healthy life. So that was really nice. And then from there, within the agency, there was an opportunity to open like a dedicated team that would handle the submissions of the materials into Viva, the platform where the materials would get routed for review and approval. And we created a team called like the regulatory operations who would be handling that task of the process. And they asked me to join that team. So I was working more of the kind of like the quality control of the material side of things to make sure that what was getting routed to the client for review and approval was up to the highest quality and standards of the client. So it was a very admin focused work, but I also got to work with different clients and kind of understand a little bit of their process and how they route materials for review and approval.
Well, so you've run the gamut, kind of. You've done internal communications, internal marketing. You've done external publishing. You've done external marketing. You've gone from very broad, like medicines or pharmaceutical based, to very specific rare diseases. Has something like, have you gravitated towards one of those things? Do you find joy in one specific over the other?
That's a great question, and I would think I've found that because I studied health promotion and public health, I really like when I see the direct impact on the patient. So, for instance, the one that I told you about Center Precocious Puberty, like I remember we did an event with like two parents. We were asking them questions about like the materials we had for caregivers on the product, and just hearing their stories, they were like talking so well about the product and how much support they had gotten. I was like, wow, that's like very like the work that I'm doing is generating an impact. Because sometimes when it's like like for instance, a vaccine, you're like, yeah, vaccines save lives. But I've never heard like a patient come up to me and say, like, hey, my kid was going through this. And like those stories, I was like, I do get the sense of like I am making a difference in the world. But when you hear the actual stories of the patients, it's like very fulfilling.
I totally agree with you. I love a lot of the work that I do. I probably talk about it too much, but the Partnership for Prevention when we were at
Yeah.
GSK, that hearing like when we got to go to the markets and speak to people and them tell us like the difference that it made having access
Yeah.
to certain healthcare, it's still one of the most fulfilling things, you know. I always say like the work that we do in benefits is taking our external mission as a company and turning it
Yeah.
inward for our employees. And to be able to see that impact is really, really cool. So I completely agree with you.
We were doing the mental health month in Canada, and I was invited to like talk about the different benefit programs that we have around mental health. And the person that was leading the conversation like opened the microphone to the audience members, and someone talked about like how they were going through a really hard time during COVID and how like the benefits program at GSK was super helpful in terms of being able to talk to a psychologist and a specialist. And I was like, I that is like my job has been done. Mission accomplished. Like that was super good to know, especially when it comes to like mental health and the fact that the company's able to help with that is super powerful.
Um, okay, so I think that that's a good segue into the namesake of this. If I knew then, I always frame it as what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self or someone who's potentially looking to follow in your footsteps?
Great question. I would say the first piece of advice is to trusting the timing of things. 'Cause, like, I remember like, when I started my career, I was very like, "Okay, from this, I'm gonna go to this," and, like, you always kinda, like, have a map it like, a plan in mind or map it out, but at the end of the day, there's so many things out of your control that, like, you won't know what happened. Like, I remember when I started at GSK, my mind was like, "I'm always gonna stay at GSK," but then I learned that sometimes other opportunities present themselves, like, you would probably get more curious about, like, what's it like working at an agency, and it's like, I was like, "You know what? The worst thing I can do is go to an agency, and if I don't like it, I can always knock back at the door at GSK." Because like, you wanna keep that in mind, so it's always, like, trust in yourself and also in the timing of things. I would say that's, like, my number 1 advice. And then
I like that.
the other thing that I always say is to keep an open mind. Like, try new things even though they may be extremely scary, or you can think like, "Oh, I don't even have experience in that," because at the end of the day, like when I think about my career is I want to learn different. I'm a very like I like to learn about every not like different things and become like an expert at everything, but it's always like go towards where your curiosity is leading you. So if something catches your attention around like benefits and communications and prevention, it's like that's why I ended up like applying for the job. I was like, this sounds like a very interesting challenge. Like I think I can do it. So it's always like keep that open mind and that curiosity.
I love that. I think that's great advice. I think also too is following your curiosity, but also putting yourself out there so that people know. I did the same. I started in accounting. I ended up in benefits by chance because of, like you said, there were so many
Hmm.
different variables out of my control. One day I was sitting in my cubicle, which happened to be next to our VP and our SVP at the time, and I was like, "Do you need help with anything? I'd love, you let me know. I'm
Hmm.
good at this, 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 and this." And they asked for help on what turned into the Partnership for Prevention. And then, like, I found a space that I didn't know existed,
Hmm.
and I became super curious about it and like enthralled with it. So I love that advice.
And I think sometimes it's like daunting, like, oh, I'm gonna take a new role in the agency. Like I don't even know how people at agencies work. So it's like just like trust yourself that you'll get through whatever you need to. And like being like part of a new job and a new company can be scary, but also super exciting because like you're gonna try new things, learn new skills, but also bring all your skills to the team as well.
Yeah. And growth starts at the edge of your comfort zone. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
I love that advice. Thank you for sharing. What's next for you? What are you looking to do next? Like, what are your future goals? What are the space you want to be in?
Yeah, great question. So, actually starting a new job. Well, from the agency, I went into a tech company, which ironically I had been using their platform my entire career. They're called Viva. So everything that was routed through marketing at GSK was routed through Viva. Everything that we uploaded for the agency to the client for review was in Viva. So I had been using it my entire career. And one of the managers reached out to me through LinkedIn. She's like, "Hey, I really like your profile. I'm hiring for someone on my team." And I was like, "Oh, wow. LinkedIn is finally pulling off." So that was super awesome. I met with her, and when we started talking, she's like, "Actually, you're gonna be a better fit for someone else's team, so I'll put you in contact." And it was really a good experience in the sense that I had never been like reached out by someone who wanted to like have a conversation with me. It was usually the other way around, me reaching out to someone at a company to kind of hear about the company and their experience. So it was a good like experience for it to be like the other way around. So I joined Viva almost, I think, like 2.5 years ago, and it was within the consulting team for content. So it was kind of helping clients use Viva promo mats up to the best of their capabilities that we have to offer within the platforms. And I'm actually leaving Viva and joining a new company. I'm taking on a new challenge. I'm going to be joining a startup that in I think it's either June or July of this year, they're launching their first product, and it's for treating women with breast cancer. So it's going to be something that I think ties really nice to what I've been telling you, like the part of getting a sense that my job is actually impacting people's lives. So I'm very excited about that. And at the same time, obviously a little bit nervous because it's like meeting new team members, starting kind of like from scratch again. But it's always both exciting and nervous at the same time when you join a new company and a new team.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
have no doubt you're going to do great. It's cool to hear, like, it's kind of full circle too. All of the things that you said you were interested in, you're ending back up in that space. I hope it works out. I'm glad to hear it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I think the other thing that I would share is I know imposter syndrome sometimes can be like very like a common theme when it comes to career, and it's like sometimes you'll like I would question myself like why did I get hired for this role? I don't think I'm like even delivering, but it's like remind yourself that you have so much knowledge in the back of your mind and you have so much experience. It's sometimes like you take for granted and you forget. So one of the exercise sometimes I'll do is like I'll grab a piece of paper and like write down the different jobs that I've done and kind of like the skills that I've gained, and kind of having that like putting it on paper and like reading it, it makes such a difference. And I think that's kind of like one of the things I like about this podcast is like you don't understand how much you've done in your career and until you have to sit down and talk about it. And it's like, oh my God, I've done so many things that sometimes I forget. Like I sometimes forget about my time at GSK. I forget about like how we were helping people during COVID and like working from home and all that. So it's like that exercise can be like a good grounding exercise of like, okay, maybe today I'm not feeling like I'm adding to the table, but if you like take a look previously everything you've done, you remind yourself like, okay, I am amazing at what I'm doing and like I'll get through it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations again. Best of luck in the new role. Yeah, I'll let you go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Anthony. And for those listening, remember to like, subscribe, and follow.
I love that. Thank you so much for the
Of
plug.
course.
All right.